Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. Today we're going to look at the ink that I used in the review of the Asvine V169. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link in the description below. But I really like the ink that I used in that test, and it is the PenBBS number 223, the Chongqing City ink, and the city featured on the label of their octagonal bottle. I kind of like the PenBBS ink bottle. Anyway, the ink I also really like. It is a blue ink with some blue-gray shading, and that's why I thought it would fit very well with the blue-gray pen. The acrylic inside that skeletonized body on this is blue-gray, and so that was how I chose that. So I'm going to share with you the properties of the ink on paper, how it looks, how it performs on this, which is Rhodia paper, and I'll give you a cheap paper sample as well. So let's just dive right in. All right, so again, the ink is PenBBS number 223. And this pen writes kind of nice and wet, and you can see there that blue-gray shading of that ink. No real feathering or anything like that. That's not really an issue, and no real bleed through at all or blotchiness, anything. So very well behaved ink on this paper, and I do really like that. Actually, I'm trying to write with the pen, but let's do this. Let's get a swatch right quick here, and I'm going to have to use my pocket knife because that's what I brought. There you go. Very, very nice. I like that. Let that dry a little bit. Let's do a little bit of a drying test. See if I can see my watch over here. So first, the 5 seconds. And quite wet. 10 seconds. Fairly dry. Let's do 15 just for good measure. And actually, maybe I drove. Let's redo the 10-second test. Okay. And 30 seconds. Just nearly dry. So, a decently quick drying ink, but nothing overly quick. I also want to test the water fastness, so let's see how it performs. All right, now let that sit a good bit, probably testing the paper as much as I am the ink at this point, and that's actually pretty decent. You would still be able to tell what you wrote. And like I say, I let that actually soak through. And by the way, where I did the ink test, of course that did blotch, but that's pretty normal. So that actually pretty decent. I didn't think of this as a water-fast ink. It's a dye-based ink, but that's decent. That's decent, not bulletproof, but decent. Now that that's had time to dry, check out the shading here. So you see the blue-gray and those darker bits, and it really does have a really nice color variation. And you know, sometimes you get this in the ink swatch, but you don't get it in the writing. But if you can see, let me see if I can get that to focus. Yes, you can see that actually you do get all those same colors even in this fine nib as you get in the swatch, which is not always true with an ink, but it is with this one. So that I do really like. I mentioned I would share with you on cheap paper. So the cheap paper I had handy is Post-it notes, which, you know, kind of ironic. They're not actually cheap, but they are cheap paper. And it does go through a little bit. I have not had this on much other paper, but this is a pretty thin Post-it note, and so it did go through. But no feathering, no other issues. just a little bit of bleed through on really cheap Post-it note paper. On all the papers like this, on the Walmart dot pad, the Pen Gear dot pad, Indian paper, Vietnamese paper, composition notebooks, performs really, really well. And I just love that color. Check that out one last time before we go. All right, God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.